Julie, we good? What about that music, that little soft Carnival Cruise Line music? Welcome, everyone. Wow, what a great crowd. So thank you all for being here. Latin Chamber of Commerce. I am Peter Guzman, president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce. Honored to be, and honored to be here with this incredible subject of AI, a subject that some people are afraid of, some people are embracing it already, and we want to make sure nobody gets left behind. So in today's digital age, technology is indispensable in driving economic development and growth, serving as an essential tool for every sector of Nevada's economy. From the data centers attracting billions in investments to the digital tools that help small businesses reach new consumers, embracing technology is a foundational step for growth and success in today's economy. These partnerships are deepening as technological advances like artificial intelligence and machine learning continue to be embraced in the Silver State's industries, from mining to healthcare. These emerging technologies are already having a profound impact on our state, helping employers and educators upskill the workforce to increase the bandwidth of workers in sectors facing critical workforce shortages. We already see how AI is fueling the next chapter of Nevada's future. Yet, to preserve this innovation and continue leveraging the potential of technology more broadly, there has never been a more critical moment for our state and federal leaders to take a measured and balanced approach. I'll tell you, we've put together an incredible group of folks up here. Folks that do not hesitate to say yes, that know what's happening in our community, and we're grateful to have them. So, each panelist will now share their background and expertise in how their respective industry wields AI and digital tools. So I'm going to turn it over to them. We're going to be very respectful of your time, but we are going to definitely hit this as hard as we can. So why don't we start with you, George?
Hi. Oops. Is this on? Hello. Hi. I'm George Chanos. I formerly served as Nevada's Attorney General. This was about 15 years ago. I've since helped a company called Capriotti's, a small sandwich chain, grow from 40 stores to over 200. We've acquired a company called Wing Zone along the way, so altogether we're about 250 locations. We've grown that from a $10 million company to a $100 million company. Today I write and I speak around the country about technology and about the future and about what's happening at the intersection of social, political, economic, and technological change. My book is a book called Millennial Samurai, A Mindset for the 21st Century. You can download the entire book for free if you go to millennialsamurai.com, or you can go on Amazon and get yourself a copy. Great Christmas gift, Christmas coming up. Out of all the things that I will leave my daughter, and there are a number of things that she'll receive, the most important, I believe, is that book. So it's an opportunity for you to give that to your children and to help them survive and thrive in what is the most extraordinary period in human history. Happy to be here and answer whatever questions I can.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And Capriotti's, let's give it up for Capriotti's. I mean, it's a great sandwich. Angela, we're going to go to you.
Hi, everyone. First, thank you, Peter, for hosting today's event. And thank you to Ahern. I have not been in here. This is beautiful space. So thank you so much. At the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, many of you in the room know us as the public transit provider. But what you don't know is that we also are the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We're like the giant ATM for the local governments when it comes to funding roadway design and construction projects. And we're also the traffic manager for the region. So when you talk about AI and technology and innovation, we really, when I just had conversations with some people, the transportation industry has been most disrupted by technology and innovation. And just a decade ago, we had a choice, as Peter had mentioned. Do we embrace technology or do we fear it? And we raised our hand and we chose to embrace technology. I mean, how many of you 20 years ago thought you would get in a car with a stranger, right? And now, how many of you, George, did you take Uber and Lyft to get here?
I should, well, I'm going to withhold comment at this time.
And so between, just between Uber and Lyft, if you think back, we have mobility and why I say we've been the most disruptive. When you think back, you had, horses, and then decades and decades, you moved into the automobile. And then from the automobile, you had the elevator. And then we just stayed put. And then you had Uber and Lyft, and then you had autonomous vehicles, right? And autonomous vehicles is really where I believe Nevada was at the forefront with technology. And Peter, if you remember, as you talk about regulations and you talk about doing it diligently, it was the Latin Chamber, it was the RTC, it was actually Steve Hill with his leadership, where in the 2017 legislative session, we passed Assembly Bill 69, which opened the doors for Nevada. And it said, we are open for autonomous vehicle technology to come test, pilot your work here. We want you here in Nevada, but we're going to do it in a safe environment. And we're not going to stifle your innovation and your tech. And as a result, today, you have Google, you have Motional, you have Zoox, you have Neuro, you have many different technologies doing business in Nevada, hiring Nevadans, because we were wise about the regulations that we took. So we're going to go through a lot of different conversations, but overall, I'm really proud of the work that we've done at the RTC. We are not afraid to pilot and demonstrate new technologies. We take calculated risk, but within those calculated risks, we recognize and realize the benefits technology and innovation has for our community.
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. Rudy, brief up next.
Thanks, Peter, and thank you to the Latin Chamber for having us and hosting this. AI is an important discussion to bring because it's the future, right? And it's great to see that Peter and Latin Chamber is in the forefront of bringing these discussions to our community. My name is Rudy Pamintuan, and I'm proud to serve as a chief of staff to the hardest working Lieutenant Governor of the nation, Stavros Anthony. Yes, thank you. So it's the last couple of years, that's who I've been working for. Relevant to our discussions and prior, I served in a variety of executive management positions at defense and federal government contracting firms. Specific to AI and other emerging technologies, we really focus on a lot of the innovation research grants that DARPA and IARPA promote, DARPA being the research and development arm of the military, IARPA, the research and development arm of civilian intel. And so in addition to that, I served in a variety of advisory capacities with private equity funds and family offices that focus and drill down on emerging technologies, specifically AI, blockchain, some nano, and some cyber. So that's a little bit of my background. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Next up is my dear friend, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. He is my friend right back. And I can't say enough about Peter and the Latin Chamber in this community and Nevada. I'm from the Midwest. I went to school on the East Coast. I even lived in Canada for a few years. But I've been here for 26 years now, and I've lived here longer than anywhere else. And I have to say, while this community makes you earn it when you're trying to do something new, when we decide to do something, we end up being best in class. Right. And that's in a community that has a lot of things that needs to change, a lot of things that don't exist here that other communities have had for decades. But I owe a lot of what I have to this state and this community. I see a lot of faces out here that are friends and colleagues. And this is a topic that I'm really excited to talk about with respect to healthcare. And if any community in any state can lead by example in an issue that people are not sure about and are wondering if it's good or bad or just unsure of, it's Nevada. in a number of sectors. And so I'm excited for this conversation. I have been in healthcare for the last 20 years. I was fortunate to work with Larry Ruvo on the board of Keep Memory Alive to be the founding CEO of the expansion of the Cleveland Clinic about 15 years ago. And then I was fortunate to move over and be the founding chief of staff for the Krikorian School of Medicine at UNLV under the leadership of Barbara Atkinson. I then moved over to be the CEO of the Nevada Health and Bioscience Corporation, where we built the medical education building for the Krikorian School of Medicine, which is a beautiful, beautiful capital asset with wonderful partners, and from the state to the city of Las Vegas to corporate partners, and a fantastic funding model. And other capital assets under development now. And my most recent endeavor, which we'll talk about today, which is an AI-led foundation, which will seek to serve underserved populations and rural populations with a new healthcare delivery model driven by AI, which I'm excited to talk about. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Can't wait to hear more about the healthcare portion of this. And last but not least, on your table is a pink box with a donut in it. And this gentleman has his own damn donut. I mean, he has his own donut, guys. Just a wonderful human being, a wonderful family. George P. Bush, honored to have you here.
Thank you, Peter. It means a lot. I'm going to bring some of these back to my kids in Texas.
They're going to think you're cool, Dad, for sure.
Well, it's so great to join y'all. Wrapping up 2 terms as the 28th Land Commissioner for the state of Texas, a journey of a lifetime where we take care of our military veterans, help to build energy independence for a great state like ours in our country, but also respond to our country's largest natural disasters. And it's a privilege to be back in Las Vegas con todo mi gente, con este pueblo acá en Las Vegas. ¿Cómo estamos?
Bien, bien.
¿Qué pasó?
¿Habla español?
Pues un poquito. Menos que más. It's great to be back in Vegas. And with respect to AI, I've been spending a lot of my time since public service on energy solutions in a power-constrained state like Texas, where we actually are separated from the U.S. national grid. And because of AI, there's been a lot of questions about, are we going to be prepared for these power needs moving forward? And then, in my private life, I'm advising a handful of startups in regulated industries that offer AI services to government agencies throughout the country, whether it be in the military or if there's civilian purposes. So just really delighted to be with you all this afternoon.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's kick off the full open discussion. I'm going to start with you, Maureen. How is AI supporting OnKai's mission of improving equitable healthcare delivery in Nevada? And how is this helping patients in underserved communities?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, just to harken back to my past, I was so fortunate to move into healthcare and to learn medicine through the fantastic medical system of the Cleveland Clinic, which has been around for over 100 years, beginning in the Midwest, and they're now global with their medical presence. And, as I learned medicine and learned academic medicine through Barbara Atkinson and building a medical school at UNLV, I learned how medicine operates with some of the best people in Nevada and in the country. And we have fantastic medicine and people today in our community, in the country, and we have no shortage of innovation happening. The challenge we have is, despite the best efforts of the workforce in this country over the last 50, 60, 70, or 80 years, is that when we've built out our healthcare system, it's been without the advancements of technology that we have today with AI that I'll talk about in a moment. And we built it with the assumptions of a population that could get in a car and drive to a building, that could use their telephone and make an appointment, with the assumptions that populations lived in certain places and could move and work around schedules of a 9 to 5 and lived in certain places. Over the last even 10, 20, 30 years, populations have evolved, populations have become more diverse, and life has become more complex. And in that same amount of time, we have seen 90 million people in rural and shortage areas and marginalized communities effectively sit outside our traditional healthcare system and not be able to access our traditional healthcare system, whether it was because of geographic struggles, language and cultural struggles, fear, and being underinsured, lack of insurance. And so we effectively have a quarter of the American population who cannot access our current healthcare system. And so that's a challenge when a quarter of our American population cannot access traditional services. It's also social determinants, like they don't have a car. Other things like that. They're between jobs, and they have kids, they have job schedules, and so the current healthcare system, by design, just doesn't meet the needs of a quarter of the American population. So fast forward, we have artificial intelligence, which for a mom like me, or like many moms who becomes pregnant, a care pathway in medicine says, okay, you become pregnant, here's what a care path looks like. Here's the 10 steps. You become pregnant, you go and you have a scan, you have a blood test, you go and you have 10 or 12 steps in your journey of a care path from when you become pregnant until you give birth. And it's a beautiful, fabulous, convenient journey, but it's getting in a car, it's having a doctor's appointment, it's having lots of tests. But for a mom in a marginalized or shortage or rural community, maybe she doesn't have a car, maybe she doesn't have access to a phone or have all those convenient locations to go to that provider, to go to those many different stations to get that test. We need to change that care pathway with AI. We can have a portable scan that goes to the mom. And instead of being a big, giant machine, it's small, it's portable. It can go right to the mom, whether it's in the community health clinic or it's her in her home, or it's in a car, or it's under a bridge because she doesn't have a home. So what AI does is it allows us now as healthcare providers to reimagine and reinvent and rethink what healthcare can be today and what that care path looks like for a mom. And it takes the bias out, even if it's unintended, of how we can meet moms and dads and families where they are in their living situation and still get the healthcare outcome. And I'll leave you with this, pull cost out of the system, because that ultrasound used to cost $100,000, and it was a big cart that the doctors pulled around an office, and now it costs $4,000, and it comes with a cell phone that you can call someone for a second and third opinion, and then get a picture of the scan, and 3 doctors can look at it, even if you are under a bridge somewhere or in the mom's home with her little kiddos running around. So that is the power of AI. That is the power of portability and convenience, and that's the power of meeting all of us, no matter who we are and the color of our skin and our living conditions, where we are, and saying everybody deserves health care, and we can bring it to you and save lives and reduce cost because we all belong to each other.
I love that, Maureen. I love that. I love that. Okay, so Nevada's economy. We're going to switch to Nevada's economy. George, what steps should Nevada take to attract more AI startups and tech innovators to our state? Because we're going to need them.
For sure.
How do we attract them?
Well, leveraging the case study of Austin, Texas, which now is, I think, 5th under fifth in terms of assets under management for early stage investing. I think back to when I was a young law student at the turn of the century. There was one venture capital fund in town, and really the only startup that people really recognized was Dell. Fast forward to 2024, it's a stream of endless Californian venture capital funds and entrepreneurs that have moved here. But in the context of AI, what I hear generally from a lot of founders and investors alike is that we just don't have enough HR to support the early stage company. Access to capital is not as much of an issue. Angel investing community is strong. But in order to have a complete and comprehensive ecosystem to help launch new AI ventures in places like Southern Nevada, you kind of have to have all those combined. We're blessed that we have a research institute. You all have one here as well. Plenty of capital. I think in the context of data centers themselves, which we could go into and maybe other questions, I know that there's available land and power. Right now in Texas, I know as land commissioner, I can tell you, we got plenty of land, good pricing, but a shortage of power, which is going to be a constraint for states like Texas. And so when I think about the fourth industrial revolution that's right in front of us right now and the innovation economy that y'all are trying to recruit here in Southern Nevada, I think, and we'll talk a little bit about regulation with your big bad neighbor, California, I think it's nothing but a tailwind for this region. And, finding that HR piece, recruiting younger students, capitalizing on young, bright talent that want to start businesses. Look to your neighbor in Utah and Salt Lake. Look to us in Austin and others where people want the innovative ecosystem of, say, the Bay Area and Northern California, but they can't build it anymore because of high regulation and high tax.
Well, listen, I think we should stay right there since you brought it up. How important are data centers to the Nevada economy, and talk about their role as the backbone for digital services in the Silver State?
So, the recent estimate that has been put out there by the likes of Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, is that the country is going to need to double its power capacity from estimates that I've heard is in excess of over 200 gigawatts that have to be generated by the end of this decade. And in large part, if you took all the NVIDIA chips, the Honeywell chips that have been ordered, we don't have enough power to actually service them, even if we put them into data centers. So the roadblock to the AI innovation economy in many respects is not American talent. It's actually just being able to find the power and the rare earth minerals to service a lot of these data centers. And that's another blessing of Nevada. I'm a member of the Western States Land Commissioners Association. If you go to and I'm not a chemist by any means, but if you go to the table of elements, the periodic table of elements, almost every single rare earth material is located in the state of Nevada, something we do not have in Texas. You all are the leader in lithium, so anything in these screens or in batteries require lithium. We import as a country 90% of all of our rare earths from China. And so I don't know about y'all, but I view that as a national security threat. So Nevada could really actually be one of the interesting areas where you have everything from the supply chain standpoint, from a data center perspective. Don't let Texas know that I gave you that insider scoop.
Don't worry, it's not being streamlined. But you brought up lithium, and just as a side note, we just finished Governor Lombardo, who's doing an amazing job. We just had a lithium summit. We know how important lithium can become for our state, so hopefully we can get at it as soon as possible. So thank you for that. I'm going to stick on this side of the table. George, I'm interested in knowing this as well. How is AI helping to revolutionize the legal field?
First of all, I want to answer that question and not be a politician that evades the question.
But you're about to be a politician.
No. There's something else. There's something else that I want to share before I answer that question. So, when I'm in a situation like this, I try to think of what's the highest and best use of the opportunity to be in front of this group. And I'm more of a strategist and looking at a helicopter perspective on what's happening in AI. And I think you need to understand that so that you can work backwards from that, right? Because right now, We're talking about the things that we can do incrementally to use AI moving forward day by day. But we need to have an understanding of where this is going. And where this is going, so I want to give you a brief understanding of that. In 2014, theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking said that the singularity, that moment in time when machine intelligence would eclipse human intelligence, would be the greatest event in human history, greater than fire, greater than the wheel, greater than anything mankind has ever envisioned. Ray Kurzweil, the head of AI for Google, who's been tracked since the 90s in his predictions and been shown to be about 86% correct, said that that moment in time, that singularity, could come as early as 2029. Others are saying now, perhaps as early as 2027. So we're talking about the greatest event in human history hitting us within the next 5 years. Now, beyond that, Kurzweil says that by the 2040s, artificial intelligence will not be our equal. It will be 1 billion times more capable than human intelligence. The human mind lacks the capacity to even fathom what an intelligence that is 1 billion times its own represents. But this is what's coming. It's a tidal wave. It's a tsunami. It's tectonic. So I think that we begin our analysis on how we prepare for that, working backwards, understanding the magnitude of what's coming, understanding the speed with which it's coming, and then start to plan accordingly. Okay, so that's the first point that I want to make. As far as, my compliments to the questions, because the questions that you've been asking and that you indicated you may ask are all great questions. And I want to make a point about questions versus answers. Knowledge will be ubiquitous. When I was a kid, I would get on my bike and I would go to the library. Today, my daughter goes on her phone and she Googles something. In 20 to 30 years, you won't have to use your phone. Your neural cortex will be connected to the cloud. You will think of a question, and the answer will come to you instantaneously. This isn't from me, this is from Kurzweil, who, according to Bill Gates, knows more about AI than anyone in the world. So you'll go to sleep, you'll wake up knowing a new language. Okay? Think of the implications of all of this. All right? So knowledge is not what you're going to need. There's going to be this source of knowledge in the cloud that is going to be all-knowing. We may even have a hive mentality where everything I know, you know, and everything you know, I know. So what will be important will be the questions. You can have an all-knowing entity, right? But if you don't know, if you don't have the intelligence to formulate the correct question, then what use is it to you?
Right.
So it's all about the questions. It's all about intelligence, learning to ask the right questions, right? So I took all the questions that we were notified that we would have, and I plugged them into ChatGPT. And I had ChatGPT answer all of the questions, right? And it gave me a much more detailed and comprehensive list of answers than I would have come up with myself. So you want to know about how it's going to affect the legal profession.
The legal field.
Right. So first of all, legal research and document review. AI can make great strides in legal research and document review. E-discovery, the ability to discover information from your adversary in a lawsuit. AI will lead you in the direction to what you need to discover to win your claim. Contract analysis and drafting. AI will draft your contracts and will analyze contracts for errors. Predictive analytics and case outcomes. Instead of guessing as to whether or not you're going to win this lawsuit, AI will tell you beforehand whether or not you're going to win this lawsuit. Automated legal assistance and chatbots. So today, law is costly, right? It's accessible to people who can afford the great lawyers, right? When I was practicing law, it was very expensive to hire. In the future, you'll be able to go on your phone and you'll be able to ask that phone any legal question concerning the law anywhere in the world, and you're going to get an authoritative and accurate answer. Now, that may not be the case today. Today, AI may hallucinate, and lawyers will have to double check what it's saying. But as it evolves and as it gets better, it will have a higher and higher and higher rate of accuracy. So this creates a democratization of access to the law.
So more fairness in the legal.
Yeah, more fairness.
Let's leave it right there.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to leave room
Yeah.
because I think they're all like,
Holy shit.
holy shit. Just kidding. I'm saying that right now. I'm like, wow.
I can't follow him, but I'm going to test
You're
him.
going to follow him because you're going to
You're
discuss.
looking at me and I'm like,
You're
oh
going
boy.
to discuss RTC's integration of AI and technology and transportation.
Hats off on
So-
what you did on autonomous vehicles.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Now,
Exactly.
I'm going to say this. If you put that through ChatGPT, it's probably going to be, this question is probably going to be only today 70% correct. So he's absolutely right. I use ChatGPT. It's only 70% of the time accurate. So if you're using it, if your kids are using it, it still needs to be reviewed for accuracy because it will be wrong. Okay, now let's get into the Let's get into the RTC perspective, and I'm going to give it. George, we're going to do this slowly, okay? We unfortunately, but holistically, the takeaway here is that we at the RTC do use artificial intelligence. And I'm going to give you examples. We have used artificial intelligence since 2017 with a small company. It was a small startup, and this is what's really important. The small startup, they were from Israel, but they were based in San Francisco. And they came knocking on our door. And this was the RTC's first attempt at understanding how to work with technology and innovation, how to work with small startups. And if you know anything about us, we work on behalf of the community. And so we don't start from a place of no, go away. We start from a place of how can we work together and what are the benefits? And within Waycare, the organization that the company at the time was called Waycare, they're like, knock, knock, you do traffic management. And this is before I even knew what predictive analytics was, right? And I only had Google at the time to tell me what, they're like, we'll take real-time data, and then we'll take real-time data, historical data, and use predictive analytics to predict where future incidents are going to occur on the 15, starting at Russell and going all the way to North Las Vegas, right? So that was the boundary. It's like 30 miles of the boundary. I'm like, yeah, right. So I said, let's look to see what this could look like. So we engaged with Waycare, we followed them along, and this is what's really important. If you're a small business, you have to be able, and you want to do these pilots and demonstrations, and you want to work with government, you have to have a dedicated individual there. And so we said, bring your person in, we'll infiltrate them into our system, and we'll share information. And I will tell you guys that the end results of this is that we deployed Waycare for the first year. And in the first year in 2018, they were able to, one, build a dashboard in real time that our traffic managers could look at the pilot area. Two, they were able to identify incidents. They were able to identify 17% more incidents than we would have been able to identify with a human sitting at the computer looking to see, because we normally get it through calls, right? So we normally get, hey, there's an accident here. And then the third thing that they were able to do, because we are co-located with NHP, the National Highway Patrol, Nevada Highway Patrol, and NDOT, and RTC, we're able to all work together to respond 12 minutes faster than the 911 call. Wow. And that is in the course of that first year. Now at the RTC, we're all housed under one umbrella. So we do traffic management, but we also operate the bus system. So we let the technology go. Waycare was bought out. The little startup company was bought out by a bigger company called Recor. Recor invested millions of dollars, bought the company, and now we're working with Recor. They're a bigger company. They were able to get the GTS feed of our transit system, put it into their platform, and now our bus operations command center can also look and see where the accidents are and can in real time report the accidents to the bus operators to say, this is what your delays are going to look like. And then we can better inform our customers as well. So that's just an idea of how one of many projects where we work with small startups to pilot, demonstrate, and then infiltrate our system.
I love that, Angela. Love it. Well, Rudy, you get to tell us, what is our state government doing to encourage all of this, the adoption of these technologies statewide?
That's a good question. First of all, it's great to know private sector always leads before government, and it's always a good,
100%.
it's a good way to look at it. When it comes to the state government, I want to start by talking a little bit about myself, because that's a little easier to talk about yourself, right? Because a lot of people don't understand AI. AI in itself is just a big toolbox of different solutions, right? And so when I first took on this job as chief of staff, I noticed that the demand on my time and the need to prioritize better was a big challenge, right? Influx of emails, more events to go to, more meetings to conduct, constituent requests, this whole slew of things. And I found that my response times are starting to slow down, and that was not something that was acceptable to me. And so a good friend of mine did a whole deep dive analysis of my life, because when you look at it, we are systems ourselves. There's just biology, right? So he did this deep dive. He looked at my schedule pre this job, while I'm in this job, and he found that in that analysis, that from the time I didn't have the job to taking on the job, it was a 79% increase in needed capacity to meet the demands, right? And it's not just the job. I have 3 boys. They're all over the place. We travel a lot. We do a lot of philanthropic work. We do a lot of civic work, right? So, and we're all, right? That's the biggest issue, is we just don't have enough time. And it's not even about prioritization, because here's the deal. If you have 12 things that are due tomorrow, it's priority because it's tomorrow, but now you've got 12 things to prioritize. How do we do that? And so AI, all my tinkering with AI had always been for entertainment, for fun, but now I had to integrate it in my own life to increase my capacity, because there's only so much sleep that we're willing to give up, right? And so with different AI platforms, I've been able to do a lot of things. So for instance, obviously, someone sends you a Google Calendar, right? You put in your Google, but you've got to be logged on to Google, right? So I've got a platform right now that scans all my communications, from my Facebook messages to my Instagram messages to my text messages, and immediately I could put it on my calendar without having to log on, log off, and all that kind of stuff, right? So from an operational standpoint, that's important. I brought this, and if anyone talks about it later on, we can. It's actually called the Rabbit. If you look it up, it's the first AI handheld device that's in the market. It's still in its first rendition, but it's still learning. And so I spent a lot of time with it. So let me tell you a little bit what I could do with this. I can ask it and say, hey, Rabbit, I've got to go to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Can you find me a direct flight? It'll show me a list. It'll tell me a list of short flights that I can get there before a meeting at 8 o'clock. It'll tell me the airlines. Now, you could do that on the phone, but here's where it's intuitive and it makes decisions. I can say, Rabbit, book it, and it books it.
Wow.
So when you think of every transaction that you add up, and you think about all the research that you do, it creates that efficiency, and you get back that time to go back and prioritize things. So those are just some examples in my personal life. Now, with our office, right? You think about how many people call our office for constituent services, right? I also get text messages. There's never one place, right? So we've got all these communications channels. Well, through my personal AI platform, I'm able to make sure, and I can reach out and I can say, hey, platform, is there something I haven't followed up on? And it'll scan all my communications platforms, and it'll tell me you didn't get back to your wife on this issue, or your son has, right? So that saves me time, and I don't have to go through all that data. So when you think about statewide operations, think about efficiency. It's about taking back time so we can address the needs of our community and all our residents in our state. It's also about cost effectiveness. If we can cut the time in the process and procedures of what we do day to day, we save in costs.
Absolutely.
Finally, one last point. Sorry. Public engagement. One thing that we've been talking about, 2 interesting things. One, we've been talking to the Secretary of State's office. When you think about going through the process as a small business person, getting online and dealing with your LLC and doing all that, it's a big maze. So there's the complexities of that. There's the complexities of you're a regular person, government speak doesn't make any sense. So I need some type of translation in with that. And then there are people that have language barriers. The concept of possibly putting a chat box on the Secretary of State's page. That way, if anyone has any questions or doesn't understand things, or there's a language disparity, or they don't understand a government term, they can actually ask something that's intuitive to then offer that response. And then the last one thing that we're working on, the Lieutenant Governor is chairman of travel. And so one thing we're working on is because we're really focused on getting more people to visit the rural areas of our state, right? There's a lot of great state parks, there's a lot of great hiking, camping, and what have you. So we're currently working with a pilot program to create a platform where someone that's visiting or someone in state can say, hey, I'm interested in hiking, and this is what I'm interested in seeing, water features, what have you. And what it'll do is it'll come back and based on your preferences, build a whole itinerary based on the time you want to do it. So for an efficiency standpoint, cost savings, time savings, it's great for the efficiencies of government. And for our constituents and for the great residents of Nevada, it's creating greater opportunities so that they can explore and take advantage of our government serving them to make a better quality of life for them here in our state.
Keep hearing that word efficiency. That's important. We're going to move over to on the need to avoid overregulation. So George, I'm going to start with you. How important is balance when it comes to AI legislation?
Yeah, it's kind of a Wild West right now. Take from me a Texas cowboy. I don't think the U.S. federal Congress is going to act. We've seen an executive order putting out basic guidelines for how AI companies and the methodology for which they put together for their algorithms should be designed, but there hasn't been any federal action, nor is there really kind of any guidance on which federal agency is going to have jurisdiction over these designs. So starting this summer, and depending what states you're looking at, different legislatures have presented their own AI bills. And I'll just refer to your big bad neighbor of California, where they had 38 reach their governor's desk. The Governor Newsom signed 11 into law, several of which I think do have some utility. We live in a federalist system, and people have different perspectives on it. I think it's a great thing because we can see if they're going to have car crashes, so to speak, on their bills that they passed, so that other jurisdictions can learn from that. But I just will say that in Texas, one of the laws that actually I think does have some merit out of California relates to deep fakes. You may recall during the New Hampshire primary, there was a robocall that was undertaken that called 55,000 registered Democrat voters, telling them not to vote because there was no primary. Remains to be seen what the impact of that was, because Biden didn't really have a challenger at that time. But it was a very authentic voice that was leveraged, and it sounded like President Biden calling his fellow Democrats not to vote and that there wasn't a primary. So when you think about the different political implications of robocalls, of deep fakes, and others as you get closer to an election day, that's certainly problematic. In Texas, just looking at our Republican primaries, there was a challenger to our speaker who presented a direct mailer just alleging all kinds of things, posting him like bro hugging Nancy Pelosi, which is in Texas kind of the kiss of death. But it wasn't an authentic photo, and it was done 31 days before the election. So the nefarious actors in politics know the law. They're not going to break it. So I think as we look at regulation, that it needs to be confined to the things that government should be handling and governing, and that's running our election systems. Because I just think that with deepfakes, robocalls, and other manipulation of AI, it could have really bad implications.
So I want to stay with you because we have a session coming up. We have a session coming up, and so talk a little bit about should we be cautious about a wave to rush to regulate AI, or where do you see that right now?
I think there. Depending on, I hate to generalize, but it's been more of the liberal states that have been more aggressive in passing law, whereas other states have been just kind of being passive. And again, I'm not here to judge Nevadans or the process here. What I think for a lot of us in Texas are doing is looking to see what the early states are doing, like California, on the regs. We have a very independent philosophy, and I don't see us passing that many laws. In fact, if we do, it's going to be capping the use of power for data centers, for crypto miners, and for AI companies, including the big tech companies. So the populist kind of element in our legislature has taken over, I think, with that respect. So that's kind of unique to Texas, I would say. But my advice to Nevada, again, going back to the earlier question in terms of attracting entrepreneurs, I just talked to an AI entrepreneur that is using one of these voice-activated technologies to help Domino's Pizza. It's like their biggest contract that they were hoping for in terms of customer service. And they're operating in California. They're looking to move to Texas, but they're going to be enjoined in a lawsuit that would basically bankrupt them overnight, even though they're picking up great companies like hopefully we'll talk to you, General, about your sandwich store in terms of customer service and delivering products to consumers that want it. And so, runaway jury verdicts is a problem that haven't been addressed in California. So I guess that would be my advice to the Nevada legislature is capping damages and probably eliminating punitives as it relates to startups that are just getting off the ground and trying to innovate.
So let's stay right here with the legal. What role can existing legal frameworks play in fostering responsible AI development and deployment?
Right. So there's a whole host of laws, massive body of laws that can be applied to the AI field, right? Everything from environmental laws to laws relating to fraud and misrepresentation, laws relating to negligence. So the first, I guess, wave of response will be to rely on our existing bodies of law to apply to this new technology as it evolves. But it's going to require that we create new laws because it's a changing dynamic. There are things that are happening in this field and things that will happen in this field that we can't even yet predict. And so we have to have a very responsive and flexible type of approach that balances the need for innovation and the need for consumer protection and society's protection, right? One of the areas will be, I think, transparency in the way that these AI large language models are built, because they can be trained to have bias, right? Depending upon what data set of information you're feeding this AI, the AI can be very much influenced by its creator in what information it gives the AI access to. I think that's a huge issue. Ultimately, relying on the existing laws, striking a balance between what's in society's best interest, what's in the consumer's best interest, what's in the community's best interest, and at the same time, not trying to be a heavy hand that stifles innovation. One of these issues on energy that George brought up, that there may be limitations placed on some of these companies in terms of their energy consumption. As these companies grow, they are going to be voracious consumers of energy. They require energy to grow, and they will have an unlimitless appetite for energy. And so Google today is creating mini nuclear reactors to power that technology. Here, Switch is completely dependent upon renewable energy, primarily solar energy. So there are a couple of things that I think Nevada needs to do in this regard. Number one, we need to expand our capacity for energy production, which means solar, right? We have great opportunities in the solar field to provide the energy that these companies will need to grow. Data centers is another major part of this. Expanding our data centers should be a huge emphasis of our state and local governments, because data centers will attract all of these industries. They require it. Whether it's cloud computing, whether it's AI, they all require massive data centers. They all require massive energy. So we have to start thinking creatively about these types of solutions, right? So for example, Yucca Mountain, right? Rather than making it a nuclear waste repository, maybe it should be turned into a massive data center surrounded by solar fields, right? We have to be more creative. We have to be more innovative in coming up with these solutions.
I appreciate
That's a good
that. I really do, because we're hearing more and more about these mini nuclear reactors too. So to Maureen and Angela, I know we're running, time is flying. My God, this is incredible. I want to pose something to you guys. How could new AI regulatory frameworks create roadblocks for your use of technology?
Yeah, and I'm glad we're having this conversation and you're continuing to lead this conversation. I think we need to be really careful to everything that George the General has said. Amen to that, right? I think there needs to be a balance in privacy, but at the same time, we have to be careful in how we regulate, because we're going to regulate out the small businesses and the startups, and we're going to stifle innovation. And so, for example, we right now are working with Nutuitive, True Outreach. He's actually back there on our, community engagement platform. How do we best respond to the community? And he has access to metadata and all of this different data. But if we unnecessarily draft legislation that doesn't allow him to access that, but it gives the bigger, larger companies, and he's in our backyard. He's in Southern Nevada doing this work for organizations across the country. We just lost something, right? And so for us, I think what we do at the RTC is we definitely monitor legislation, especially around cameras and privacy, because that's where a lot of the safety AI technology lies. What can we do? What we can't do legally? We look at a lot of that. We anonymize the data, but it's making sure, Peter, that we really, when we come together, and the best thing that we did was around the autonomous vehicle technology, where we had private industry, local governments, the university, and it took a year of honest conversations of the pros and cons to the legislation and what it would do. And that's what I strongly recommend we do as we move forward, because if we're not doing that, we're going to be our neighbors who are going to regulate by fear, for not understanding what the technology can do and what are the uses of it. And by doing that, we're going to have unintended consequences to welcoming an industry, giving them the parameters, and saying we're open for business.
Maureen, how could regulations create roadblocks for you? Thank you, Angela. That was amazing.
Thank you. It's exactly the same for healthcare as it would be for transportation or other sectors. In healthcare, we worry about, especially with AI, the ideas of, like with ChatGPT, we're seeing misdiagnosis, especially in the pediatrics area. And right now we're seeing legislation in mental health and prescribing drugs with AI exclusively. It's proposed, but it hasn't passed at this time. And so the idea of leaving the humans out of healthcare, and then the moral deficiency of that, and so it's that perspective, and then the fear of that. So we've got to overregulate, and then the data sharing. So who owns the data? And then when you get multiple stakeholders in there, we've got to overregulate that as well. And so if we slow down, we've all heard this before, slow is fast. And we take time to have the arguments at the front, not the arguments, the conversations, so we avoid the arguments, and we make sure everyone's at the table. We can work this out. We can work it out. Humans always need to be involved in this, and it allows the data accumulation, which is what AI is, to allow the predictive analytics with the humans, with the patients, with the providers, to allow the decision at the end to be enhanced. It doesn't take the human out of it. It allows the decision to be enhanced with the information and with the data sharing. That just needs to be worked out at the front with whatever legislation is proposed, not to clamp down so that it's the wrong regulation that excludes everybody at the front end. And so I would encourage the same thing for healthcare, just like transportation and the other sector, contemplating having this come in to improve the sector.
Excellent, excellent. So Rudy, we're going to end this series of questions with you. What's one piece of advice you would have for Nevada lawmakers as they return to Carson City and consider setting up AI guardrails? And don't say for them not to show up. Just kidding, just kidding.
Well, I think that, so I'm going to talk about AI from an industry standpoint, not other sectors, right? It's AI as an industry. If we want to bring in AI companies, because that's where the growth is, right, in the future in technology, the two areas that we really have to focus on is, and George talked about it, it's energy. We've got to address the energy issue. If we want to bring in AI industry, we need to be able to give them a pool of power that they can count on. So that's number one. Number two, the workforce issue. Our education system is not matched up to develop a workforce to take on those jobs. I know when I talk to people in technology or talk to industries and we talk about, why don't you move your plant here, your company here? They're talking about what's your workforce look like? If we're going to grow to 1,000 people in 5 years, where do we pull these people from? Now, it's not just about technology. We've got to do technology right based on what we see in the future. Right now, we have schools that get excited to teach their kids coding. I'll tell you right now, coding is going to be a language that will be obsolete in a couple years because coding is going to be done by AI. We need a curriculum that will create a workforce that will be our future developers, our engineers, right? Prompt engineers. There are kids out there that I know of that are 22 years old, high school education, and they're making $160,000 a year being a prompt engineer. Most people in the room don't know what that job is. But, we need to get our education squared away to prepare our kids in Nevada for the jobs that are coming down the pipe in the next couple of years. So energy, education, those are the two most important things I think our legislature needs to focus on. And then once we have the workforce, once we have the power, once we get the companies here, then let's talk about guardrails, if any.
And to that I say, boom, 1 o'clock. Right on the dot. How great is that? So we're going to go to brief opportunity for everybody to give brief closing remarks from each of these incredible panelists. I think we've learned so much, but I'd like to now close it out. We're going to start down here with Angela.
Wow. I just want to thank everybody for coming, but more importantly, thank you, Peter, and the panelists for leading the conversations around artificial intelligence. I think there's a lot more of these sessions that need to be hosted.
I think part 2 is coming.
We need to educate to start to avoid fear-based legislation, right? And so I think it starts here. It starts with what is artificial intelligence. Thank you for the highest level of education in your ChatGPT preview to level set the conversation. But thank you. Thank you for having us. Look forward to participating in future conversations.
We're going to call out to you. Rudy?
Thank you very much. And thank you to the chamber. What's most important to me is that every resident in our state understands what AI is. Don't be intimidated by it. It's not going to take over our world. It's a tool for you because, like I said, I got to a point where I was not being efficient in the way I wanted to conduct myself, right? And I think we can all agree. If you're a parent, if you're you own a business, you understand it's about efficiency and executing on your priorities. AI is a tool that will make your life easier. It'll give you back more time to address things that are more important in your life. It'll make things move smoother. Making money will be easier. Accessing data will be more fun. And ultimately, a lot of the decision-making, a lot of it's trivial, you can hand off and have something else address. And so look at AI not as something that's intimidating, nothing that's too complex. It's a tool for you that you can add to your toolbox. And if you embrace it and take your time and be patient with it, not only will it change your life, but it'll change the life of the rest of your families and everyone that's around you. So I encourage you to dip in.
Excellent. Maureen?
Thank you, Peter, and to the Latin Chamber, and as importantly, all of you for being here today. As I contemplated my next endeavor to spend my time in, I chose this not because I have any knowledge of technology. I can barely get my iPhone on every day. I chose this because of people like this on the panel who were knowledgeable about AI. And I firmly believe that this technology is going to remove the word underserved from healthcare. And after spending almost 20 years in healthcare and building a medical school that was focused primarily on building doctors from those communities, and I mean that passion is in my marrow. I want this to be my last job, and I think it's going to be my last job because of AI, and we're gonna fulfill on that mission. So I'm committed to it, and thank you for being here because we can figure this out, and AI is going to be a big part of it. Thank you.
And thank you, Maureen. On a personal note, we talk often, and you're always consistent about making sure that the communities that we care about all communities, but we certainly can't be leaving communities behind. And you're all about that, and that's why I'm so appreciative of you. George,
So
don't scare us again.
I can't help myself. So yeah, that's a great segue into what I'm going to say.
I love it. Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Bring
So-
in the robots.
Yeah. So listen, bottom line, raise your game. Learn how to engage in critical thinking and complex problem solving. Learn how to think. Be bold. Believe in yourself. Believe in others. And believe in your future. We are living in the most extraordinary period in human history. It's scary. We're at a tipping point, I believe, poised between a second enlightenment that is very much possible through this technology to create untold abundance. There's a great, Dan Mapes, a friend who's an AI scientist, wrote a book called The Spatial Web, in which he says that through trillions of sensors, we will increase productivity and 10x the global GDP and create abundance for all, in which we can solve all the world's problems. That's one scenario. That's one future. The other future is very different. In 2017, Vladimir Putin said, "He who controls AI will control the world," because they will be able to subjugate all other governments. I believe that the United States and China are in an AI race, an AI arms race, like dueling Manhattan projects. I believe that what will surprise everyone is the speed of change and the magnitude of change. Alvin Toffler said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write. It will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." You need to unlearn, and you need to relearn. This is a brave new world. Incredible opportunities ahead. It all depends on you and what you do with it and how you react. Pericles once said that just because you don't pay attention to politics doesn't mean politics won't pay attention to you. Just because you don't pay attention to AI doesn't mean AI isn't going to impact you. It's going to impact you dramatically, more dramatically and more quickly than you can possibly imagine. So get excited about it.
Yeah.
Get prepared for it. Learn everything you possibly can about it, and help it be that source of enlightenment for all of us.
That's excellent, George. Excellent. George
Well,
P.
It's a delight to be with each and every one of you. Great to have this conversation. I'm so inspired by the other panelists and how you're implementing AI, not only in your personal practice, but in this great state. I couldn't agree more. I think that we are in the midst of a great global competition. And Xi Jinping has stated that by 2030, that the goal of the CCP is to overtake the United States and not only hard warfare and hard power, but also soft power. And AI, I think, is at the forefront of how we would define soft power. We can't let regulation, we can't let the government get in the way of harnessing this ingenuity, this opportunity. I would rather have US-based values, democratic principles be at the foundation for how this is designed rather than our competitors. And so that's what's really at stake. And so my hope is that lawmakers and that those that hold influence, not only here in Nevada, but also in Washington, D.C., keep that in mind, that we got to do this together because it's about our country's survival because of the impact that's in front of us. So once again, I thank you all very much. May God bless each and every one of you. May God bless the United States of America. Que les vaya bien.
I love that. That's a great way to close out. And I'll close out by saying, intelligence is in every community. Access to learning it sometimes is a little more challenging. And that's why the Latin Chamber is involved. Because we not only reach the entire community, but we also represent a community that sometimes gets a little left behind. And I will not stand by and allow that to happen. And that's why we're bringing AI to the forefront, because I believe AI is going to help those communities that have always been a little more challenged in getting to, greater education and higher intelligence. AI is going to fix that. That's why the Latin Chamber is involved with it. I can't thank you enough for being here and showing up. I hope you had a good time, and all I can say is stay tuned, more to come.
Good job.
Let's eat.